Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 139 of Speaking from the Heart. And now that you're on my podcast, let's set a couple ground rules for today. First off, everything that I say you must do. Ground rule number 2, make sure that you leave a tip after this episode so that I know that you actually listened to it. And that's an order. I better see your names in not only those tips that you're giving me, but also make sure that donation that you're going to give me has a lot of dollar signs behind it. And number 3, make sure that you share it to every single person that is on your friends list, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's your followers on X, whether it's even the people that listen to your TikTok videos. I want to make sure that I see Speaking from the Heart spread all across. Otherwise, I'm coming for you. Now, come on. You know me. I'm kidding around. Or am I? I feel that we have rules that we have to follow, especially when we're at the jurisdiction of someone else, whether we're living with them, whether we are working for them, whether we're doing something else that is some sort of contractual agreement. We have to set a parameter of a variety of different rules, different opportunities for us to excel. But are those really the rules, the things that we should be setting up, especially if it seems like we're being a little bit over-demanding? In today's episode, let's tackle that subject of how many rules are really necessary for us to really get on board, especially when it comes to following someone else's lead. I don't know about you, but I feel like we are in a society of just having to follow so many different types of rules. There's rules about how we file our taxes, how we even deal with the grocery store, of what kinds of items we need to pick up, because we can only pick up a certain number according to store policy, using even coupons, being able to address a variety of different traffic laws, a lot of different aspects of flying that we have to abide by, especially when we are traveling all by ourselves, even getting our passports renewed, even dealing with insurance, environmental issues, you name it, there's always a set of rules that we have to follow. And before you start emailing me at podcast@yourspeakingvoice.biz about how many rules that you need to follow, let's get to the point. The real thing is that these rules really help us to understand on a common playing field how we move forward, not just on our own ability to coexist, but to make sure we bring order from chaos. Do we go a little bit overboard with the expectations that we need to have? Absolutely. I can't tell you how many people in my life have told me that I need to do X, Y, Z. But yet, it didn't make any sense whatsoever to do X, Y, Z, and you should have done A, B, C instead. Heck, I've even had landlords that have told me I need to make sure that not only should I clean up after myself, but you better do it on the 10th day at 10 o'clock p.m., otherwise I'm coming after you and I'm adding more to your rent. And that seems a little crazy in itself. Why would you charge more rent when I have already done the things that you've asked me to do? That's absurd. But yet, we have people that even do this on a day-to-day basis, and they get away with it because we don't find our voice to stand up. It's even sad. I've seen Undercover Boss episodes, the most famous TV show, I would say, that put exposure to the different types of bosses that we can have, and especially the disgruntled type of employees that we even engage with on a day-to-day basis, of what it means to actually be a really good boss or even be a terrible boss overall. Now, of course, they're going to paint themselves very professionally. They're a multi-level corporation by all necessary means, but I've even seen government even featured within Undercover Boss that has allowed other people to be exposed for even what taxpayers are being utilized for. All the money that is being wasted. But yet, you have to think about the fact that even though that the rules are there to be able to help us all grow, it doesn't mean it gives you a free pass to always come down on someone, even if they violated the rule in the slightest. And if the rule is always being violated, is the rule really good? Or should it be looked at to see if it can be enhanced? Time and time again, I've even seen some businesses I have worked with start to work on this process as a whole. I've even have talked to some people that have been very disgruntled. People that are looking for new jobs that have been clients of mine are looking for a new path. They're trying to figure out a way in which this big world of all kinds of rules and regulations can be navigated, despite the fact that it can be challenging to even understand where they fit in the first place. These rules that we oftentimes set for each other have unintended consequences that we normally don't think out. Now, I have to also thank my liberal arts education to allow me to really see that there's more than what just meets the eye. There are consequences if we're not able to understand what the true implications of some of these rules that we make have. And if we don't figure out what those differing beliefs are, if we don't do our research as it relates to why those rules are terrible in the first place, we're never going to be able to succeed, whether it's in personal or professional or even business development for that matter. The truth of the matter is, rules aren't always meant to be broken either. So the question becomes, when is it okay to break a rule when you know that it's absolutely wrong and you need to be able to stand up for yourself? Or if that person or that place that you work at is so unreasonable that they'll never be able to change what they have going on, how can you keep moving forward but also walk away knowing that you need to be able to send a very powerful message to them that what they're doing is absolutely wrong? This whole concept, we've seen it in the news about whistleblowers. We've even seen it not only in corporations, with even famous scandals for that matter, that have radically transformed the environment in which we are able to operate in from a financial perspective, but we've also seen it in government itself. The IRS even being called out for politicizing a lot of different things that they've been doing to not only normal taxpayers, but to other people that have special interest. Where does the line get drawn, and where does the accountability begin? That is always the overarching question that we have to keep asking ourselves, especially when the tough rules have to be followed. And yet we give ourselves some grace knowing that sometimes we do it, and we do it unintentionally. I think that when we have differing beliefs of what things need to be done in order to continue to grow, we have to also look at the other side. We need to be able to have a dialogue as to why this rule is really important. And if the rule isn't necessary, get rid of it. And if the rule is necessary, what are the safeguards to ensure that the rule is followed? Sure, we have police protection. We have rules that are being enforced by the police departments across the nation. But yet, even with police enforcement, rules are always broken. Even with regulatory bodies that do audits and even understand the importance of accountability and compliance, things are still missed. Is it really intentional for someone to break a rule when they really are trying their best to follow it? But yet, at the same time, there isn't really any guidance to help them set that standard that they need to have. In other words, what is the roadmap that we need to be following just to make sure that we have those rules so that we are able to understand them and hold each other accountable for that matter? I think that we have to learn to be able to have an ongoing conversation, which I've even talked about in other episodes, the importance of not giving up the fight for making sure that we have a voice at the table. But sometimes that voice at the table gets drowned out by all the other things that we need to do. It gets drawn out from all the things that are happening amongst the chaos of all the other things that are going wrong. Being able to put our focus and attention on certain things so that we're continuously growing and prospering can be a very difficult, challenging process in itself. I can understand completely why it's so hard for some people to be able to follow along, while others, it's no problem whatsoever. Which begs the question, can rules be equal to all? It's a societal question. It's something that we are struggling with on the day-to-day, trying to figure out what's the best balance so that we're able to thrive, but also not segregate, even demoralize, even prosecute people that should have never been prosecuted in the first place. It means examining what has been happening in the past, thinking about what the rules are now, and whether those rules are really needed for us to continue moving in the direction that we need to be moving in. I think for people, especially that are neurodivergent, which we haven't even started to talk about yet, have a whole other perspective. They know that if they miss the mark, they're going to have overexertion of not only the things that they feel about themselves, but also because they missed the mark of what they should have been doing with following the rules. They're not feeling good about themselves, let alone even feeling good, both physically and mentally, to keep moving forward. And that can create havoc in so many different ways. My house, my rules. It sounds as if we are so entitled when we say that, to feel like we have to follow every single nuance of what someone is saying. But yet, when we try to have a voice and when we try to stand up, it's often broken down. It's even thrown away from ever being heard. And that's such a shame. I know that for many of you that are hurting because you might have been the victim of a rule that you didn't understand or maybe didn't really grasp, and yet you got fired, you might have been demoted, you might have been even pushed out of a project as a punishment, amongst any other kind of punishment that makes you feel inadequate. It makes you almost feel like you can't even make any difference. I know people that have taken it so badly when they have done something wrong and they didn't even realize that they did something wrong, that they really try to have a voice. They try to argue their position. But yet that other person that is making that authoritative decision doesn't care. And when we don't care, we're not listening. Especially in this ever-changing world that we live in which even my own business, Your Speaking Voice LLC, talking about even the things that we say and do sometimes are disregarded. Even other organizations, which I've even talked about on this show, Someone to Tell It To, an organization close to me here in the Harrisburg capital region of Pennsylvania. He even works on compassionate listening, being able to understand and grow in ways in which we would have never ever grown in the first place. Life coaches that live even close to me, working on their craft, making other people feel like they have a voice to be heard, and rationalizing the ways in which they're able to move through the problems that they have, both personally, but even with a professional coach, somebody that's working on career counseling, even somebody that is dealing with your business. The things that we do, the passions that we have, but yet the determination that we want to have to continue moving forward requires us to follow rules that we often don't agree with. How do you walk away and even deal with all the things that might be wrong with a rule and yet keep moving forward? Now, if you think that I'm going to end this episode by saying, yes, you need to be compliant with it, you're absolutely wrong. And I think that you need to understand that sometimes just sucking it up and thinking that you need to just deal with it is some old thinking that comes from a previous generation of individuals that had no choice. They decided to have no choice. But in the 21st century today, we do have a choice. But it's the way in which you handle it, which is what makes a big difference. And as if there is anybody on this show that we've ever had that have broken the mold, I know that they will continue to share the stories that they have, because it comes in all shapes and sizes. And what those experiences are, even of people like myself that have shared numerous stories of individuals that have hurt me, have even persecuted me because I did not follow their rules, doesn't mean that they get a free ticket to continuously harass or even denigrate myself, or in your situation, your whole entire life. As I've even have put it to one client of mine, you have a choice to make every single time as to whether you want to accept that opportunity for you to discuss those situations that come up, or deal with the positive contributions that you can have to be able to keep moving forward. When we talk about handling it positively, know that it's not just about what kind of research that you do. It doesn't matter what you might say in a way in which it might be well articulated. If you have the undertone that you are a mean son of a bitch and you don't care about what that other person has in terms of the rules that they're trying to share, you're going to fail every single time, even if they are a son of a bitch. They might be the meanest person that you've ever met, but there's a reason for it. And I ask you today to find that reason. And if they're not willing to open up, it's time to walk away, because you have that choice as well. We live in a society in which it was built upon the fact that we've been able to work together. And I find still that we are not working together in the way in which we should be doing. If we're ever going to grow, not only as individuals, not only as businesses, not even in all the things that we are doing for our family, for our charities, for all the services that we provide, we have to learn to be able to open our mouths and have that conversation. And even with the rules that might be different, just know that you have a choice as to whether you want to live a life in which you want to be able to feel like you're acknowledged. It doesn't give you a free ticket always to be able to roam free and think that you can violate every single rule. But yet, when the rules that you think should be changed and should be heard are not being listened to, that's why we have a set of guidelines in terms of how we can appeal and even challenge for that matter. We should never lose the ability to continue the conversation, though. So I ask you today, even if you have all these rules that you have to follow, are they worth it? Or is it something that you need to change in your life so that you no longer are binded by those rules, so that you feel better about where you're heading in terms of your path of self-development? Or even better yet, addressing the things that might be limiting you so that you are no longer limited. My house, my rules doesn't always equate to the fact that they need to be followed. They just need to be respected. And that is a big difference when we're talking about this overall subject. But when all else fails and you walk away and you learn that you understand a lot better now why that person felt the way they do, just remember that the growth that you've achieved, whether you believed in it or not, and whether you felt that they did not set a good example for the respect that you deserved, know that you will be in that position one day and you will have a choice. Do you want to be that person that is very dictatorial in terms of the process and procedures? Or are you going to be fair and democratic? Be willing to listen, take a vote, and figure out what's the best for not just yourself, but for everyone else. But it all starts not just with talking about it, but opening your mindset to the endless possibilities that it isn't about the physical sense of how we live our rules, but how we grow alongside of them as well. Thanks for listening to episode number 139 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.